I'd like to say what to me is a big hidush. And I'll tell you how the hidush came to me. The Rambam talks about the shofar. It's on everybody's mind, obviously. The shofar is the centerpiece of Rosh Hashana. And the Rambam is very clear when he tells us that there is no reason for shofar. He calls it Gezerat Melech. It's just one of those things that we do because God said to do it. Why do you take this odd instrument? Why do they blow these sounds that are non-musical? It's a hok. It's something that Borei Olam, God Almighty, instructed us to do. We're obedient, we do it, and we believe that it'll bring us a sweetening of the judgment. That being said, if everybody admits it's a hok, Gezerat Melech, and then the next line is, however, there is a remez. And every rabbi gives their interpretation of what the shofar represents. The Rambam, no different. What's interesting about the Rambam is that normally he doesn't offer opinions of reasons for the mitzvot in the Yad HaZakah. Normally he leaves that for his Moreh Nevuchim. But I guess Harambam didn't want anybody to miss this reason, because not everybody is perplexed, so not everybody reads the Moreh. But the Yad HaZakah, he knew everybody's going to read. It's a halachic book. So he said, I'm not going to squander the opportunity that they should miss the reason that I believe shofar is. Therefore, he says it in the Yad HaZakah. If I'm not mistaken, it's the third perek of the laws. What's the reason? He says the shofar is a wake-up call. It's an alarm clock. Uru yeshenim mishinatchem. Wake up from your slumber. Those that have veered off the straight and narrow path, that have got lost in what he calls havlei ha'olam, the frivolities of this world, the amusements, the nonsense. So the shofar somehow wakes the congregant up in order to remind him of his purpose, of his goal, of his destination, of the higher order. That's what the Rambam says. And I've been hearing this since I'm a kid. Shofar is an alarm clock. Wake up. That means everybody in the synagogue is sleeping. They're not physically sleeping, but somehow they're in a spiritual slumber. And somehow when the shofar is blown, it's supposed to take you out of it. But I don't understand how. Why doesn't an ambulance siren do that? Why doesn't an alarm clock do that as well in the morning? Which is what's the magic of this shofar that it wakes you up from that slumber? It's another sound, it's another noise, it's another horn. There has to be something deeper. Anyway, that's one of my main questions. How to understand this Rambam. What's the remez that the Rambam is telling me the shofar wakes us up and takes us away from our distractions, hablei ha'olam, the frivolities of this world, and brings us back into focus. How does it do that? There's something else. On Rosh Hashana, starting then for the next 10 days, we're going to add 4 different lines into the Amidah. It's integral that we say all these lines. Zochrenu lehayim, and then we have Michamocha v'rahaman, Zocher Yisura b'rahamim lehayim, Uchtov lehayim, Usefer hayim. Common denominator between all these is the word hayim. I got to thinking, we're asking for this and we're begging for this item called hayim. What is hayim? If you'd asked me last week, before I prepared this derash, I knew it. Hayim is life, physical life, existence. Hayim means you have a pulse, you have a heartbeat, you have brain activity, you have bodily function. And I don't have a problem with that. We have to pray for life. We don't have a guarantee on it. We don't have a contract. The landlord can evict us at any time. And we've seen over the past year that many tenants are no longer with us, of all ages, of all groups. So that reminds us that you have to pray for a renewal every single Rosh Hashana. I don't have a problem with that. I'm praying for physical life. That's what I always understood Hayim is. Now, I don't think I'm going to change that opinion tonight, because that's the fact. Hayim is life. My problem is when I start opening up different pieces of the Talmud, and I get into a problem. For example, one passage in the Talmud will say that the wicked, the Risha'im, b'hayehem, even in their life, nikra'im metim. The wicked, while they're living, are called dead. Now I have a problem. My definition doesn't fit with that Gemara. How could you be alive and dead at the same time? I'm not a doctor, I'm not a professor, I'm not a scientist. But it's either you're alive or you're dead. I don't work for the Hamra Kadisha either. But you're either alive or you're dead. But the Gemara says, no, not necessarily. Of course, the Gemara always has a different way of looking at things. In the Gemara's viewpoint, you can be alive and dead at the same time. And a Rasha, while he has bodily function and he has a pulse and he's clinically alive, but the Gemara says for all practical purposes, he's dead. And then the Gemara says the other side, the flip side, that it's tzaddik. Even after he's dead, well, he's still considered alive. Tzaddikim b'mitatam nikra'im hayim. That means he's buried underneath the ground, he's in shrouds, there's a tombstone, they're putting flowers on his grave. But the Gemara says, nothing to worry, he's alive. Ask a doctor, they said, no, he's dead. Even the Havra Kadisha says he's dead in that case. But the Gemara says, no, not so fast. You might have to mourn him, but rest assured, he's alive. So therefore, we have to go back and start to try to understand and redefine our definition of what is life. Because once we figure that out, then we'll figure out what we're praying for. What is life? Well, the Gemara in Betzah says that the rabbis once made a comment about the Babylonians. Hani babla'eh tipsha'eh. They called the Babylonians tipshim. How would you say a tipesh? I guess a fool, an imbecile, probably more coarse words, but you know what a tipesh is. It's not flattering. They said these Babylonians are tipshim. Why are they tipshim? The akhla nahama benahama. Because they eat bread with bread. Not too sure what that means. Were the rabbis criticizing a people because of their diet? Because of their menu? Fools! They go to a restaurant, they order a bread sandwich. Nahama ben nahama, you put bread in bread? Who eats a bread sandwich? Well, if that's the case, then every American is a tipesh. All our sandwiches are bread and bread. Piece of bread on top, piece of bread on the bottom. Person has a bagel on Sunday morning. Hani America etip sha'eh. Nahama ben nahama, have a bagel. A bagel's bread with bread. Nahama ben nahama. I mean, all of a sudden the rabbis are getting involved in such trivial things. You care what the Babylonians eat, nahama ben nahama? What were they worried? Too much carbs? What was the issue? I once saw an interpretation, although it's a famous interpretation. Every rabbi talks about this Gemara and says their interpretation, but the most sound and the most famous probably that's said by all the Hachamim of note, they say it like this. Nahama ben Nahama is a hashkafa. It's a philosophy. It's not a diet. Rabbis couldn't care less what their diet was. But they are concerned that if they have a hashkafa of life that is borderline to pshut. What's the hashkafa of Nahama ben Nahama? So you ask a person, why are you eating bread? He says, why am I eating bread? So I can have energy. What do you need energy for? So I can go to work. Why do you go to work? So I can have money to buy bread. And then it becomes what we call a vicious cycle. Nahama ben Nahama means they eat to work and they work to eat. That's their whole life. They're caught into this sort of whirlpool where they just keep on spinning on a certain treadmill. They can't get off of it. And if that's the case, then many people fall into that hashkafa of Nahama ben Nahama. Person eats, gets energy, that energy, he uses it in order to go to work. He works in order to get money, so he has more money to eat again, and he does this for 80 years until he can't do it anymore. If that's the case, the Gemara says anybody that lives according to that philosophy is a tipesh. So that tells me that there has to be something more than eating and working. I'm not professing tonight that you should stop eating. You have to eat. Nor am I saying that you should quit your day jobs. You have to go to work. But when that becomes the essence, when that becomes the purpose, and there's nothing else in between, so then we have a problem of tipshut. So then what do they want from us? What else do they want? So what I'm going to tell you tonight is really based on something that the Arizal said. I hope I'm not overstepping my bounds, meaning I hope I can explain it. I know what I mean to say in my head, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to express it properly. The Arizal says that there's a misconception when we say that everybody has inside of them a neshama. Well, that's not a misconception, but it's a part truth. Neshama is only one of 5 parts of the Jewish soul. In school, they don't want to confuse us when we're young, so they just tell you it's a neshama. But it's really more than that. He says that the 5 parts are called nefesh, ruach, neshama, haya, yechida. Or the way he refers to it as naranchi. Naranchi, nefesh, ruach, neshama, haya, yechida. And he says, they come into you, these 5 parts, at different stages of life. When you're born, you get nefesh. That's all you have. Nefesh is a very basic, it's a minimum voltage just to keep the person alive. But it's nothing to be proud of. Animals have nefesh also. Nefesh is just entry level. A baby is a little animal. He just eats and sleeps and wastes. And then at 2-3 years old, he starts to talk. Well, then already he starts to receive an upgrade, which is called ruach. Ruach is where speech is developed. But he doesn't get his neshama until he's bar mitzvah. And I guess the girl doesn't get it till she is bat mitzvah. It's an amazing thing. On the day of the bar mitzvah, something happens to the child. That means something spiritually. He's not the same child. That's why the Bishimon Bar Yochai in the Zohar HaKadosh says parents should spend, or he didn't say spend, should make as lavish as a party on a bar mitzvah like they would make for a wedding. Because it's an unbelievable day. It's the day that the neshama comes into the child. That's why the boy puts on the tefillin shel Rosh. Arizal says that the neshama is right here. It's in the brain, right by the cranium. That's where the neshama rests. So the boy puts on the tefillin as a crown over his neshama. Not too sure what the girl does. Maybe that's the, I don't know, maybe it's the pin on the wig or the clip, whatever it may be. But the point is, so by the bar mitzvah, everybody has naran. Naran is nefesh, ruach, neshama. Not everybody gets the last two. Hayan Yehida, only Sadiqim get. Doesn't mean you can't get it. It's possible to get it, as you'll see. But it's rare. It's high levels to receive these two last upgrades. Haya and Yehida, the Chet and the Yud. If you remember when we were young, you used to see guys wearing a chain and they had a Hay on it. I guess because they didn't expect to get the Haya and Yehida, so they just wore it on the chain. That's as close as they got to Haya Yehida, wearing the Hay. Anyway, the Arizal then goes on to say, and this is the key, the naranchi is part of you. It's not visible, it's odorless, there's no weight on the scale, but it's part of you, it's inside of you. And you need to nourish it. The naranchi needs to be nourished. And if it's not nourished, and if it's not fed, so then there's a part of you that's not alive. And that's what they're talking about. When they say that you have a rasha who can be alive and dead, they mean his physical part is alive, but since he neglected his naranchi, I don't know how you feed it yet, but he didn't feed it whatever it's supposed to eat, so it's malnourished, so as a result, it's dead. Whereas the tzaddik, even though he might not be physically alive, but so long as he sustained his naranchi over the years, that will remain forever. So now I'm learning from this Arizal that there's another part of us. There's two beings. There's the physical being and there's the spiritual being. And the spiritual being is real. And then it's going to be depending that if you're just a Nahama ben Nahama guy or Jew, well, you're not interested in the inside, you're just interested in eating to work and working to eat, so you're not interested in what's going inside of you, so then already you have no life. Life is defined by the naranchi, according to the Arizal. And the more that is, sustained, then the more alive you are. Only problem is, how do you sustain it? So he tells you. There's only one way. There's no supplement for it. There's no vitamin for this. There's no shake that they invented yet for the naranchi. There's only one way to sustain it, nourish it. And that's by doing what we call mitzvot. Interestingly enough, mitzvot have 5 ingredients to them. Each ingredient goes to one of the parts of the neshama. It's important to know the 5 parts of every mitzvah. What I'm telling you now is basic. The Ben Ish Chai talks about it all the time. The 5 parts of a mitzvah. Number 1, probably the most important part of a mitzvah, is the action. I mean, you could philosophize about a mitzvah all you want, but until you do it, you get no credit. The mitzvah needs to be done. And once the mitzvah is done, says the Ben Ish Chai, that influences the nefesh. The nefesh receives its sustenance from actions. Well, I guess you're in a class now. It's an action. If you're awake. I mean, we do mitzvot. The men put on tefillin, ladies light candles, mikveh, we sit in the sukkah soon, we're going to blow shofar. All these are mitzvot of ma'aseh. The nefesh needs that. Without mitzvot ma'asiyot, the nefesh is malnutrition, the nefesh is scurvy, the nefesh becomes anemic. I cannot go into this tonight, but once a nefesh is malnutrition, the Arizal said it turns into something else. Because nefesh is, it's the lowest level, and if you don't make sure that it has the right spirituality, it turns rancid, and he says it turns into what's called, the Gemara calls it ruach shtut. Ruach shtut is the root of all sins. So you have to make sure to do a lot of mitzvot to keep the nefesh sustained. However, what about the other 4 parts? Well, every mitzvah also has a verbal part to it. The verbal part of mitzvah is key. Most mitzvot have a beracha. Before we put on talit tefillin, we say berakah. Ladies make a berakah before they light candles or go to the mikveh or before they take halal. We make a berakah before shofar. Every mitzvah has verbal. I understand you're going to tell me, Rabbi, what about the mitzvot that don't have verbal? No berakah. Not every mitzvah is a berakah. If my father says, son, go get me a cup of coffee, there's no berakah on kibud avayim. There's no berakah on tzedakah, for example. It's a mitzvah to give tzedakah, but there's no verbal. But the mitzvah needs verbal. I always had the question, why is there no berakah on tzedakah, incidentally? A few years ago, I figured out the answer. A fellow came into our synagogue, poor guy. I don't judge him, he's a poor guy. And he comes to me and says, Rabbi, could you help me? And, I don't have too much in my pocket. I had a quarter. And I gave him the quarter. He took the quarter, he threw it back in my face. He said, I didn't come all the way over here for a quarter. I said, it's fine, but you answered the question. Now I know why you can't make a berakah on tzedakah. Because if I would have made a berakah on mitzvah tzedakah, and now you threw the quarter back in my face, now it's a berakah lebatala. So the rabbis understood that there's going to be, there's no refund. Sometimes they give it back. Anyway, what do you do in that case? So the Ben Ish Chai says, and the Arizal writes it as well, in such a case, when there's no berakah, you should say the pasuk of the mitzvah. On the way to giving your father or mother the coffee, say, that'll feed the ruach. When you pay your worker, you say, biyomo titen secharo. That'll feed the ruach. Now, I understand some of you are saying, Rabbi, I'm not an expert to know the pasuk of every single mitzvah in the Torah. So what am I supposed to do? So the Ben Ish Chai offers another advice. He says, you should say the last pasuk of Tehillim Tzaddi. In the 90th chapter of the Tehillim, the final pasuk over there, it says, Vihi no'am Adonai Eloheinu alenu ma'aseh konen alenu ma'aseh koneneu. Vihi no'am. Before you do a mitzvah, say Vihi no'am. And then the ruach has is sustained. But you still have three more parts. Well, then you have the neshama. Well, clearly you know what part of the mitzvah and neshama is. The Gemara says, mitzvah belo kavana keguf belo neshama. So the kavana is related to the neshama. Kavana means intent. Intent is very simple, by the way. Instead of doing the mitzvot mechanically or robotically or by routine or rote or pedestrian, the way to do the mitzvah is just have a little kavanah. And the rabbis understood that our attention span is limited. So they said in the Amidah, for example, 19 berachot, you don't need kavanah on all 19. You just need kavanah on the first berakah. That's difficult enough. And they said in Shema, you don't need kavanah on all three parashiot, just in the first two lines, Shema and Baruch Shem. That's kavanah, and that feeds the neshama. So again, it's possible you could do a mitzvah, but if you don't have kavanah, the neshama will never get sustained. The neshama goes hungry. The neshama starves. Now where does Chaya and Yehidah come in? Well, Chaya, that Arizal writes, is the deeper kavanot. Not for tonight, but all of you know that every single mitzvah has deeper kavanah. There's gematriot, there's Rashi Tevot, Sofet Tevot, there's mysticism. Those people that have deeper understanding of a mitzvah, they're able to sustain a fourth level. Well, so we got the action, we have the verbal, we have the kavanah, we have the added kavanah. What's left? Well, we still have one part of our neshama called Yehidah. Well, there's no more parts of the mitzvah left. Actually, the Arizal says there is one more ingredient left, which after the action is the most important part. As a matter of fact, he says it is this ingredient that brought the Arizal to his highest levels. And that, of course, is the attitude. The joy of doing a mitzvah. Attitude during a mitzvah is key. A mitzvot must not be like a heavy luggage that we carry to the airport. Burden, a tax, a yoke. Mitzvot have to be light. Mitzvot have to be exciting. Mitzvot have to be a source of excitement, exuberance, vim, motivation. Mitzvot have to be done happily, simcha. That's the 5 parts. Now, if you do mitzvot b'simcha, you'll build your yehidah, and you'll get that most elusive part of the neshama. Once I heard about this Arizal, I understood now that it's possible to be alive and dead at the same time. And I started to realize that life, according to these understandings, these rabbis, is on the inside, not on the outside. Outside is nahama ben nahama. But we know what it says, man does not live by bread alone. Man must live by mitzvot, because mitzvot are going to feed the inside of him. Anyway, there's another pasuk. The pasuk says, "Ve'atem devekim b'Adonai Elohechem, hayim kolechem hayom." They told us in school, "Ve'atem devekim b'Adonai Elohechem." If you attach yourself to God, you will get life. Well, I definitely want life, but I do not have any idea what that means to attach yourself to God. But the rabbis knew what they were talking about. They said, oh, divikut. How do you make divikut to God? I could hold on to my sunglasses. I could hold on to this phone. I could hold on to this recorder. It's tangible. But how am I supposed to be davik in something that's I can't see? No, divikut. Where divikut? How could I be davik? But they say, well, if you could figure it out, it'll be your benefit because you're going to get life, because divikut in Hashem brings life. Well, I'll tell you. Very simple what the Zohar Hadash writes. Divekut in Hashem means doing mitzvah. When you do a mitzvah, you're davek b'Hashem. How does the Zohar know this? The name of God is Yud Ke Vav Ke. Yud Ke Vav Ke. You probably have it somewhere. Oh, you have a Shem over there. Yud Ke Vav Ke. Mitzvah, well, the last 2 letters of mitzvah is Vav Ke. Not bad, 2 out of 4. Would have been nice if there was all 4 letters, but then mitzvah and Yud Ke Vav Ke would be the same word. But says the Zohar says, no, mitzvah actually, through magic, we can make the mem and the tzadi a yud and a he. No, you can't. How could you do that? Well, using the system called atbash. I know I'm limited on time. You know, there's different formulas how to make the Hebrew alphabet. One formula is every time you see an aleph, you can exchange it for a taf. And every time you see a taf, you can exchange it for an aleph. At, bash, you take the second and the second to the last. It goes like this. At, bash, gar, dak, hatz, vaf, za. Should I continue? Has, tan, yam. You got the point. Well, according to the system of atbash, I didn't invent it. The Gemara talks about it as well. Well, in atbash system, a mem is transferred and exchanged to a yud, and a tzadi is exchanged to a he. So basically, if you atbash the mem and the tzadi, you got a yud ke. So basically, mitzvah is yud ke vav ke. Ve'atem debekim badonai Elohechem. When you attach to the yud ke vav ke, or AKA mitzvah, then you have life. Where is that life? On the naranchi, life on the inside. And that's what we're asking for. When we're asking God, Hayim, 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 it's that life, the life that connects us to God, not the superficial life on the outside. Now, granted, you need physical life for this to work. But the physical life is only a means that we can satiate the inner life.